Masters of the Universe is out in theaters, and it was really surprising for me because I went in with high expectations. I wanted it to be great. I was a fan of the original cartoon as a kid. I had the toys, like that was something I grew up on. But nostalgia has become something negative. It is something that actively has been used against us in the fact of it hasn't been done well. There's been so much stuff on TV and film that just dove into nostalgia but didn't end up delivering anything that felt right, or it felt too much like fan service. Masters of the Universe actually knows what it's doing, and it is not perfect, but it is a lot of fun. So, I mean, the good stuff is I love the cast. I like a lot of the special effects. I think the storytelling goes in the right direction. They know where they're headed, and they wrap it up in a way that makes sense. And there is this feeling of watching something kind of old school because, again, talking about that good for goodness sake, I feel like so many shows and movies have tried to really explain backstories to the nth degree that they're trying to really dive deeply and bring a lot of meaning into these things. I think this actually simplifies all of that. You have a kid who was raised to be kind of a warrior, but he has a good heart, and where he takes that versus a villain who is just a straight up villain and we don't really need to know why, and it doesn't matter why. And those two forces coming together in this film is basically the story, and it works because it's fun. It's having fun. It knows how to have a laugh. It also knows how to kind of almost make fun of itself to some degree, while also playing a lot of stuff really straight, which is really fascinating to see because not everything can pull that off in a way that doesn't end up being too serious or too hammy almost. But Masters of the Universe really succeeds. The first 20 minutes is disappointing. I'm going to say you've got to sit through those first 20 minutes and get through that to get to the good part of this story. But once you're through it, it takes off from there. The whole film is 2 hours and 20 minutes. I think cutting that first 20 minutes and finding some other way to weave that story in would have been so much better. This film would definitely benefit from some good, deep editing. There's a few elements of the story that I would even cut. I think you could probably even cut 30 minutes thinking of some things midway through. But once you get into it, it is so much fun. It is a popcorn movie through and through. It's a summer blockbuster like we used to get in the 80s. Like, it doesn't go too deep, but it goes deep enough. And these relationships, these cast members sharing the relationships on screen, bringing these characters to life, and also bringing characters to life that literally a lot of them are just one-dimensional toys, and the actors are bringing them to life, and the team has brought them to life in a way that actually makes sense, and yet somehow feels referential to the actual toys that we played with as kids. I mean, for my generation, I think that's really interesting. There's one guy who literally just has a really long neck, and yet they make him make sense in the story. And it's weird. It's actually a really fun, weird movie, and I love that for this film because, those cartoons are weird too. There's like these characters that don't really make sense in a lot of other universes. In anything else, you look at like Ant-Man, where you have something like this, it didn't nearly work as well as this film. And I actually enjoyed Ant-Man to some degree. I'm an outlier there. But this movie, Masters of the Universe, has a way of having fun in some dumb ways. Like, there's a few fight sequences that are actually really well choreographed, but then dumb things happen during the fights, and it just kind of works because it's silly fun. And that's fantastic. It's very refreshing. I think that's the other bottom line for me, is that it's very refreshing to see this approach that doesn't feel like any of the big comic book movies we've seen, the superhero movies recently. It doesn't feel like any of those. It feels quite unique. If anything, it definitely feels like a remake of the old Masters of the Universe, but having way more fun and being way more silly a lot of the time too. And it really follows the story of Adam being inadvertently exiled from his home and trying to make his way back. And then once he's back, trying to reprove himself. And it covers masculinity. It covers, like, what does it take to actually be a hero, and what's important in life, and all these little stories that all come together in one character. And I love the way they present it, because he's kind of channeled through our world into this other toy world, and it works so well, especially because of the cast. Again, you know, talking about the cast, we have to talk about Nikos Galitzine as Adam, as He-Man, is fantastic. He has fun with the role. He's perfect for the role. There's a sensibility to him of almost being a big kid to some degree, for sure, but also just being kind of that modern masculine man who's the himbo, as it were, all those kind of caricatures, but he brings it to life in a way that feels kind of grounded and real, which I think is fascinating. And he just has a blast in it. And opposite Camila Mendes as Teela, Teela is a fantastic character. They gave her so much to work with. The story is actually written quite well for her. I love the relationship with Adam between them. It's great. And she is fantastic in this part. Real superhero material on screen. Both of them, just amazing. Idris Elba as Duncan, Man-at-Arms. You know, this is a tough one. I love Idris Elba. I think he's fantastic in everything. I do think, unfortunately, he was written wrong. I think there's some parts of this that go a little heavy on the serious side of things. You know, there's a whole alcoholism side of the story that never really gets dealt with. I unfortunately think that should have been scrapped. I like him in this. I like his role and what he has to say. But unfortunately, they could have, you know, taken that down a notch. But we got to talk about Jared Leto as Skeletor. Look, I don't like Jared Leto. I'm going to be honest. I haven't liked him for years. Not just the stories on set, but some of his performances and things. Not a fan. He's fantastic as Skeletor. And it pains me a little to say that, because it is such a great role. It could have been nothing. It could have been way over the top. But it's just a fun villain. And it's also the fact that Jared Leto feels like he's having fun with the role. And that's so important for this character. This is a funny villain. This is like the classic 80s funny villain that we don't get enough of, if you ask me. Just awesome to see him, you know, busting everyone's chop in this film. Basically, that's the best part. Evelyn, unfortunately, I'm going to say Brie Larson as Evelyn. I love her. I really think she's always fantastic. She's a great actor. I do think that it's a little too cheesy, this role. I think she did her best with the part. She probably doesn't have enough screen time either, if we're being honest. But not my favorite character for sure. But very interesting to see her brought to life. So yeah, if you have a chance to go and see this film out at a drive-in, go and see it, because it is a big screen drive-in movie. It is a popcorn film. It is just a fun adventure, and I want to see sequels. I want to see She-Ra. I want to see more. I definitely want to see them having more fun like this, and there's just not enough of those films, if you ask me. So thank you very much for watching. Once you've seen the film, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. We can chat about it. Please like and subscribe. It helps me a lot. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.